She's on a jet, destination unknown.
I don't think you understand what they'll do to her when they get her out of this country.
Scenario here.
Joe is trapped behind enemy lines with no backup, no weapon, and no way out. And the only thing standing between her and death is her own mind. Her tracker is gone. Her team has no idea where she is, and somewhere inside the CIA, a traitor just handed her location to the people who want her dead. This is the moment fans have been waiting for since the season 3 premiere, and episode 4 is about to answer every single question. Who is the mole? Will the rescue mission succeed? And what happens when Joe's own family becomes the next target? Stay with us because we are breaking down everything that is coming in Special Ops Lioness Season 3, Episode 4, and trust us, you do not want to miss a single detail. Special Ops Lioness Season 3. Episode 3 ended on one of the most brutal cliffhangers of the entire series. Joe was leading a high-risk, off-the-books operation to expose a major breach inside American institutions, and just when the mission seemed to be under control, everything fell apart. Her team's tracker was compromised, cutting off all contact and leaving her completely isolated in hostile territory. Worse than that, the compromised tracker revealed something far more dangerous. It exposed the strong possibility that an internal mole, or even a hidden network inside the host country, has been feeding direct intelligence to the enemy. That single reveal changed everything. It means the danger Joe is facing is not just from the people who captured her, it is from someone much closer to home, someone who may still be operating freely inside the walls of the CIA. Because of this shocking betrayal and the immediate life-threatening danger Joe now faces, fans have been counting down the days for episode 4, desperate to know how Caitlin and Byron are going to handle this spiraling crisis, who the real traitor actually is, and whether the quick reaction force can pull off a rescue mission against odds that keep getting worse by the minute. If you are new here, we break down the biggest and most talked about TV shows every single week, so if you enjoy deep dives like this one, do not forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode breakdown the moment it drops. Now let's get into what is most likely coming in Special Ops Lioness Season 3, Episode 4. Based on everything set up in Episode 3, this new episode will almost certainly open with a sense of pure urgency. There will be no time for the team to process what just happened. The moment Joe's tracker went dark, the clock started ticking, and every second that passes makes her situation more dangerous. Expect the episode to begin with chaos at command as Caitlin Mans and Byron Westfield realize the full scope of what they are dealing with. This is not a simple communication failure. This is a confirmed security breach, and it means everything they thought was safe might actually be compromised. Caitlin will likely be forced into a brutal decision-making moment right from the start. Does she trust the usual channels to locate Joe, or does she assume those very channels are the reason Joe went dark in the first place? This kind of tension is exactly what has made this show so gripping, because every choice comes with a cost, and there is rarely a clean answer. As the episode unfolds, we can expect the quick reaction force to be mobilized almost immediately. Given how the last episode ended, there is no room for a slow build here. The team will most likely have to launch a high-risk, off-the-books evacuation attempt, moving fast and quiet without the usual layers of approval and oversight that normally guide these missions. This is where the show tends to shine, showing the raw, high-stakes reality of an extraction operation that is being improvised under extreme pressure. Byron, known for his calm and calculated approach, will likely be the one trying to hold the operation together procedurally, while Caitlin pushes for speed, understanding that every hour Joe remains missing is another hour she could be closer to death. Expect friction between the two of them, not because they disagree on the mission, but because they disagree on how much risk is acceptable when a teammate's life is on the line. Meanwhile, on Joe's side of the story, episode 4 is expected to dive deep into her survival instincts. Joe has always been defined by her resilience, and this episode will likely put that trait to its most extreme test yet. Isolated, without a weapon, and completely cut off from support, she will have to rely entirely on her training to stay alive. This means we can expect intense psychological warfare between Joe and her captors. Given her background in interrogation, it is very likely that Joe will attempt to turn the tables, using her training to manipulate, mislead, or stall the people holding her, buying herself precious time while her team works to locate her position. This is where the show typically delivers its most tense edge-of-your-seat moments, not through explosions or gunfire, but through quiet, controlled conversations where every word could be the difference between life and death. Expect Joe to use calculated misdirection, playing on her captor's assumptions about her, possibly even pretending to be more vulnerable or more compliant than she actually is, all while quietly looking for any opportunity to escape or communicate her location. At the same time, back at Langley, the investigation into the mole is expected to intensify significantly. This is one of the biggest threads left hanging from episode 3, and episode 4 will likely start pulling on it hard. Caitlin and Byron, even while managing the rescue operation, will not be able to ignore the fact that someone inside their own organization gave away Joe's location. Expect the episode to introduce new suspects or, at the very least, cast suspicion on characters who previously seemed trustworthy. This is a classic move for this kind of thriller, and Special Ops Lioness has consistently proven that no one is above suspicion. High-ranking officials will likely be shown trying to protect themselves rather than help solve the crisis, possibly hiding financial records, erasing digital communications, or quietly trying to distance themselves from anything that could connect them to the breach. This creates a frustrating but incredibly realistic obstacle for Caitlin and Byron because the very people who should be helping them the most may actually be working against them, whether intentionally or simply out of self-preservation. This subplot is expected to raise the stakes even further because it is not just about finding Joe anymore. It is about figuring out how deep this betrayal goes, and whether this mole is a single individual acting alone or part of a larger network that has been quietly operating inside the CIA for much longer than anyone realized. Expect hints throughout the episode that this is bigger than one person, setting up an even darker storyline that could carry through the rest of the season. Caitlin, who has always been portrayed as fiercely loyal to her team, will likely take this personally, and we can expect her to push boundaries and break protocol in ways she normally would not, simply because she refuses to accept that someone she may have trusted could be responsible for putting Joe's life in danger. Adding even more pressure to this already tense episode, expect Joe's family to become directly involved in the danger. With her identity potentially exposed and foreign operatives actively hunting her, it is extremely likely that Neil and her children will be placed under increased protective custody, and this protection may not feel like enough. Episode 4 is expected to show the very real cost of Joe's secretive, high-risk career as her loved ones are forced to confront the fact that their safety is no longer guaranteed. This personal angle is one of the most emotionally powerful parts of the show because it reminds viewers that Joe is not just a highly trained operative. She is also a mother and a wife, and the world she operates in has very real consequences for the people she loves most. Expect tense emotional scenes involving Neil, who will likely struggle with fear, frustration, and helplessness as he realizes just how serious this threat has become. This is not just about protecting Joe anymore, it is about protecting an entire family from a danger they never fully understood until now. As all of these storylines converge, expect episode 4 to build toward an incredibly intense climax. The rescue mission, the mole investigation, and the growing threat to Joe's family are all likely to collide in ways that raise the emotional and physical stakes even higher than before. Given how this season has been structured so far, it is reasonable to expect that Joe's location will finally be discovered by her team, but not without significant complications along the way. Perhaps the rescue window is smaller than expected, or perhaps the very intelligence that leads them to Joe was intentionally planted, forcing the quick reaction force into a trap rather than a clean extraction. This kind of twist would be very consistent with the tone of the show so far, and it would only deepen the mystery surrounding the mole, since it would suggest that whoever is leaking information is still one step ahead of Caitlin and Byron. Let's talk more about how the actual extraction attempt could play out, because this is likely to be the backbone of the entire episode. Off-the-books missions in this show are never simple, and given that Joe's exact location is still unknown at the start of episode 4, expect a long, tense stretch where the team is essentially working blind. Byron will likely lean on whatever fragments of intelligence remain reliable, cross-checking old satellite data, communication logs, and last known coordinates in an attempt to rebuild a picture of where Joe could be. This kind of methodical, detail-heavy investigation is a hallmark of the show, and it creates a slow, burning tension that keeps viewers on edge because every clue could be wrong, and every wrong turn costs time Joe may not have. Expect several false leads throughout the episode, moments where the team believes they have found her, only to realize the information was outdated or deliberately misleading. These near misses are likely to be some of the most frustrating and gripping parts of the episode, because they remind the audience just how fragile this entire operation really is. As the search intensifies, expect the show to spend meaningful time inside the operations room, capturing the raw tension of a team working against the clock with incomplete information. Analysts will likely be shown scrambling through data, cross-referencing old intercepts, and trying to identify any pattern that could explain how the tracker was compromised in the first place. This detail matters a lot because understanding how the breach happened could directly lead the team to who is responsible. Expect Byron to raise the possibility that the compromise was not accidental or the result of enemy hacking, but rather an inside job, someone with legitimate access who deliberately exposed Joe's location. This theory is likely to shift the entire tone of the investigation, turning it from a technical problem into a deeply personal betrayal, and it will almost certainly put even more pressure on Caitlin, who has to balance leading the rescue mission while also confronting the disturbing idea that one of her own colleagues may have set Joe up. Expect the mole investigation to widen in scope as episode 4 progresses. Rather than narrowing down to one obvious suspect right away, the show is likely to introduce multiple people whose behavior seems suspicious, keeping the audience guessing. This could include a mid-level officer who has been unusually quiet since the breach, or a senior official who seems more concerned with controlling the narrative than actually solving the crisis. Given the pattern of powerful characters trying to protect themselves rather than help, expect at least one scene where someone in leadership actively tries to shut down or slow the investigation, framing it as a matter of protecting national security or avoiding a public scandal, when in reality, it seems far more likely they are protecting themselves. This kind of internal obstruction has been a recurring theme in the show, and it fits perfectly with the tone established in episode 3, where the very idea of a hidden network operating inside American institutions was first introduced. Meanwhile, back in the field, expect Joe's portion of the story to become increasingly psychological. With no weapon and no clear path to escape, her best chance of survival lies in her mind, and this episode is likely to lean heavily into that. Expect extended scenes of Joe interacting with her captors, carefully studying their behavior, looking for weaknesses, inconsistencies, or moments of doubt she can exploit. Given her training, she may attempt to sow confusion among them, perhaps suggesting that rescue teams are already closing in, or hinting that continuing to hold her will bring consequences far worse than releasing her. This kind of high-stakes manipulation is incredibly tense to watch because it forces the audience to constantly guess whether Joe is actually making progress or simply delaying the inevitable. Expect at least one moment where her plan appears to be working, only for something to go wrong, reminding viewers just how dangerous and unpredictable her situation truly is. There is also a strong possibility that episode 4 will introduce a ticking clock element tied directly to Joe's captors, some kind of deadline or decision point that forces the tension even higher. This could be linked to instructions from whoever the captors are working for, suggesting that a decision about Joe's fate is expected soon, adding a very real sense of urgency to the rescue mission. If this is the case, expect the pacing of the episode to shift noticeably once this deadline is revealed, moving from a slow, methodical investigation into a much faster, more desperate race against time. This structure would align well with how the show has built tension in previous episodes, using a mix of quiet, strategic scenes followed by sudden bursts of urgency once new information changes the stakes. On the family side of the story, expect episode 4 to spend real time showing the emotional toll this situation is taking on Neil and the children. Being placed under protective custody is one thing, but truly understanding why it is necessary is another, and this episode will likely force Neil to confront just how serious Joe's job really is. Expect tense conversations between Neil and whoever is assigned to protect the family as he pushes for more information and more control over decisions that directly affect his children's safety. This kind of storyline adds emotional weight to the episode, balancing out the high-intensity action and espionage elements with something more personal and relatable. It also raises an important question that the show may begin exploring more directly: whether Joe's family can continue living this way, constantly under threat because of the secretive nature of her work, or whether this crisis will force some kind of turning point in how much of her career she is willing to keep hidden from the people she loves. By the midpoint of the episode, expect the combined pressure of the rescue mission, the mole investigation, and the family's growing danger to start intersecting in unexpected ways. Perhaps a piece of information uncovered during the mole investigation ends up being the key that finally reveals Joe's location, tying these two major storylines together in a satisfying way. Alternatively, the show may choose to reveal that the same person responsible for leaking Joe's location is also somehow connected to the threat against her family, suggesting a much larger coordinated effort rather than a single isolated leak. Either possibility would raise the stakes significantly and set up a much bigger conflict heading into the back half of the season. As we move closer to the climax of episode 4, expect the quick reaction force to finally get a credible lead on Joe's location. However, given the pattern of this show, do not expect this to be an easy, clean resolution. There is a strong chance the rescue attempt will be complicated by unexpected resistance, incorrect intelligence, or the sudden realization that the location was somehow anticipated by the enemy, suggesting the leak is still ongoing even as the rescue mission is underway. This would be a devastating twist, reinforcing just how deep and dangerous this betrayal really is, and it would leave both the characters and the audience wondering whether they can trust anyone within their own ranks. If this is how the episode plays out, expect the final act to be incredibly intense, filled with high-pressure decision-making, narrow escapes, and moments where success and failure feel like they are hanging by a thread. Overall, Special Ops Lioness Season 3, Episode 4 is shaping up to be one of the most intense and emotionally charged episodes of the entire series. Between Joe's desperate fight for survival, the growing danger to her family, and the increasingly complicated hunt for the traitor within the CIA, this episode has all the ingredients for a truly unforgettable hour of television. Fans who have been following this season closely know that nothing in this show comes easy, and every victory tends to come with a painful cost. As we move into the next section of this breakdown, we are going to dive even deeper into what this rescue mission could mean for the rest of the season, how the mole reveal could reshape the entire CIA storyline going forward, and what this growing threat means for Joe's future both as an operative and as a mother trying to protect the people she loves most.